I do not know what you have been doing with yourselves during the week that we have been together. In the beginning, when my wanderings started in 1961, there used to be public meetings. And one would find oneself with audience in hundreds, 700, 800, sometimes more than 1,000. Like in Cosmos in Amsterdam, in Nijmegen University in Holland, in Paris, in England, San Marcos in Argentina, more than 800, Warsaw Academy of Life, more than 800. And after the talks, I would get a feeling that this has been an intellectual exercise. When you have such big audiences, you speak to them. It doesn't take the form of an intimate dialogue or sharing, because the presentation in a public address has got to have a different form, a decorum, than informal, friendly conversation or dialogue. So discussing matters with my friends in France, Switzerland, Holland, England, etc., within a few years, we changed the nature of our schedule from public meetings and gatherings to such camps. In India, such camps are called satsang sessions. Sat is truth. Sang is company. To be together in the company of truth for some days. And so throughout the world, whether in Hawaii, Australia, New Zealand, Chile, or European countries, or USA, we started this approach of being in company of truth for some days together. I don't know if we have done it this time individually. When we investigate the truth about life, the meaning of relationship, analyze the wholeness of life, on the verbal level, on a cerebral perception level, we come in contact with the truth. It's a kind of contact. Maybe indirect, not direct, maybe impersonal and not personal, and yet there is a contact. In the light of that perception, we are supposed to look at ourselves afresh and get acquainted with ourselves. Such 7 or 8 days or 10 days together are to be used for a fresh acquaintance with oneself. And one looks at one's inner being, the mental movement, in the light of the truth that one has, at least theoretically or academically, understood or seen for oneself. Because we are away from homes and daily responsibilities and the daily travail, the perception of truth and observation of our inner conflicts and contradictions together put us with our backs to the wall, as it were. They corner us and they ask us, why don't you resolve the conflicts? Here and now, before you return from such camps or gatherings, what comes in the way of resolving the conflicts, eliminating the contradictions, and growing into a homogeneity of being? And if the campers willingly agree to spend most of the time in silence, then this confrontation and this questioning can become very intense and very deep. We spend our money, time and energy, come away from homes for such camps, not for an intellectual luxury of listening to someone who has the knack of eloquence or oratory, or who is a good speaker, and that kind of thing. We don't spend money, time and energy for entertainment or stimulation. That's my hope with the persons who join the camps the world over. In August 1989, I spent 10 days in Poland with very handsome young inquirers from 8 to 10 East European countries. They were not devotion-minded people. They had come from communist countries, brought up in an atmosphere of atheism, mostly skeptic, and we had wonderful 10 days together. Discussions, questions, answers. They gave me a very nice, tough time. It was so refreshing. Because they were serious. And they had wanted to understand why communism had failed and what would happen if the communist philosophy is enjoined to spirituality. It had turned away from religion that could be understood. What would happen if spirituality and Marxist or Leninist philosophy had been enjoined together? And meditation and so on. What I'm trying to say is, these days are for individual confrontation with oneself and collectively for investigating on the verbal level and sharing the understanding through non-verbal communion when we sit and share silence. Have we done that? Have we sorted out our inner conflicts, found out why we have been nursing them, why we have carried them in our life for 40 years, 50, 60 years, unresolved? If the conflicts do not get resolved, when we have all the freedom from daily travail and responsibilities, when we have all the time for putting an end to psychological suffering and misery that conflicts, verbalized or unverbalized, cause, then there is no possibility of ending the suffering otherwise. These are very intense days, the days in the camp. Exposure to truth even on the verbal level, and confrontation with one's own being. Something beautiful. That's why such gatherings or camps are very precious. And one likes to pour one's being into the verbal dialogues and share at the deepest level. Thirdly, such camps have a utility because the modern societies in practically all the countries of the world, second world, third world, fourth world, developed countries, developing countries, backward countries, etc. Practically in all the countries, the sense of absolute values of life, the sense of sanctity, sacredness of life, has been fading away. Religiosity has been evaporating in spite of religious fundamentalism that is growing by the day, the world over. So we, coming from different countries of the world, are lonely inquirers in our countries, in our communities. When in such camps, on the international level, when they take place, and we come together, we are joining hands across oceans, across national boundaries, and a new fellowship, a sense of companionship can grow if it is allowed to grow. We belong to one another in this marvelous sacred inquiry of what is life, what is living, what is the mystery of relationship, what is dying, what is death, what is sorrow, what is suffering. We belong to one another in the movement of inquiry. Then I may be living in India and you in USA, East Coast, West Coast, in England, in Holland, in Norway, in Denmark, and so on. And yet there is an awareness that you are not a lonely person. You have your companions. You have your fellow inquirers in different parts of the world. When I went to New Zealand for the first time in 1986, 85 or 86, I had not known a soul there. Those who had invited had only read the books and had invited. Unlike a daredevil, I did go without knowing who was inviting me. And we had very charming 2 weeks together. And when we parted friends. Such friendships that take place in the camp, they have a beginning, but no end. Once you meet, you do not depart, though you may depart physically. It's a kind of companionship and fellowship at a very deep level of your being. So you feel a kind of supportiveness in your explorations, in your adventures, to correlate the wholeness with every daily activity is quite an adventure in this fragmented society. To ignore aggressiveness and violence of other people, as long as it is on the verbal level, you have to resist it. If it comes down to physical level, you have to fight back. But as long as it is on verbal or psychological level, to have the strength to ignore it and to respond to the challenges and continue working with the people who may be petty-minded, who may be haunted by fear, who may be aggressive. To be able to work with them is a capacity that gets developed by participating in such camps. You cannot choose or select people with whom you have to work in your jobs, professions, occupations. And sometimes even in a family. Even the verbal or the theoretical understanding of the truth of life, the meaning of life, or the meaning of relationship enables you to be amongst such people without getting victimized, without becoming cynical, with the capacity to take off from the level of action-reaction and respond from a different level altogether. You know, the quality of relationship changes. The quality of perception and the quality of response begins to change. When the inquiry gets correlated to the whole of living, when your understanding gets correlated to everything that you do or you do not do, then the quality of living changes. We may not be gifted with exceptional passion, vitality, and depth. With persons who have this intensity, depth, and vitality, or passion for life, untruth drops away the moment truth is perceived. There is no time lag between perception and understanding and action. That's why what you call transformation becomes such a spectacular event in their lives. If we do not have that deep interest in life and that vitality in our biological structure, that intensity of passion at the psychological level, maybe our understanding results first in peripheral changes, not cosmetic changes, but the change takes place on the periphery, not at the center in the beginning. So little transformations, not the holistic, total transformation that takes place in the life of a Buddha or a Jesus, or turning to modern times, life of a Gandhi, a Krishnamurti, a Vinoba, the saint with whom Vimala worked for 10 long years in India. So the quality of relationships changes. And if we are aware that the changes have taken place at the periphery or circumference, but the center is yet the same, it's not changing, it's resisting the change, and we are concerned about the growth taking place at the center, then we'll put in more time and more energy. During our life, going through our daily responsibilities and discharging them, we will sensitize the biological organism we will wash out every trace of chaos or anarchy or disorder on the psychological level, so that the whole being vibrates with sensitivity, and sensitivity is vitality. The more holistic the sensitivity, the more the vitality. Insight is timeless. Transformation it is timeless. It can take place in a fragment of a second. But with whom? Where the organism, psychophysical organism, is vibrating with vitality and energy. But such camps can be a help in making us aware of our deficiencies, shortcomings, our resistance to freedom, our resistance to growth, etc. Fourthly, in such getting-togethers, gatherings or camps, though you are with other people, factually speaking, you are on your own. You have no claim on other people, and the others have no claim on you, except for taking care of the rules and regulations that have to be set for sharing life. The sessions, the meal times, etc., where we have to come together, we have to obey certain rules and regulations. But throughout the day and the night, you are on your own. Nobody belongs to you, and you do not belong to anyone. So you are entirely on your own. You don't get that opportunity at home. So by participating in such camps, we create an opportunity for ourselves to be entirely alone with life. An opportunity to find out if we like living, what is our relationship to life without books, without electronic media, without having anything belonging to you at all, anyone belonging to you at all. Nearly the days are days of renunciation. So an opportunity to create a direct and intimate relationship with life, the 24 hours that you are living. What do they do to you, and what do you do to them? What do you do with them every moment that you are alone? How do you feel? Do you get bored? Do you feel homesick? Do you miss speaking, verbalizing? Do you miss gossiping, talking shop? Do you miss socialization? What are the things the mind is addicted to? The self-discovery that can take place in the life of an honest participant in such gatherings is fantastic. And after all, we are here for that. So we know where we are. Then we know how far we are willing to go and willing to grow. The dimension of freedom where you do not belong inwardly anywhere or to anyone. Is that what I want in life? One can find out in such gatherings. This inward aloneness, this inner solitude enjoyed in the camps is very refreshing. Lastly, when we find out where we stand, what are the inhibitions preventing us from growing into the dimension of unconditional inner freedom, growing into the dimension of love and compassion? When we find out where we are in relation to the truth, I think we will stop judging ourselves. Once I become aware that there is no willingness or there is no courage to pay the price and take a quantum jump into that dimension, I can't stand the austerity of freedom, can't stand the austerity of meditation as a way of living. Then I stop judging myself, judging my actions harshly. I stop creating a split between what should be and what I am. A new humility can dawn upon me. Investigating, exploring, and understanding the truth does not imply that you create a goal, an aim, an objective out of that truth. And make yourself miserable, struggling to reach towards that, though there are a number of resistances within. Once you become aware of the resistances, the struggle ends. We can make ourselves very miserable by becoming judges, sitting over somewhere and judging everything. You ought to have done this, you have not done that. Questioning the validity of everything that I do, comparing to that notion of truth. So my last request is, the truths perceived and understood should not be converted into goals, aims, or objectives. Leave them there, that you have seen them and that you have understood them is sufficient. The perception and the understanding, if it is genuine, if it's not a wishful thinking, if it's not a hallucination, emotionally provoked, if it is a fact, then the perception of truth is going to operate upon me. As I said the other day, when truth pierces the heart, it doesn't leave you, though you may try to leave it. It's there. So the struggle must end. The truth understood and perceived is bound to operate. If there are no resistances, then the truth will be implemented. It will be lived without time lag, without any effort, easily, gracefully. It will flow into my relationships. If it doesn't happen, then let me be aware of the nature of inhibitions and the nature of resistances. Find out why the inhibitions are there, the resistances are there. Maybe awareness of the inhibitions and resistances causes their melting away, fading away. Otherwise, like the people going to temples, churches, mosques, with an idea and notion of a God, we will begin to suffer with the notion of transformation, enlightenment, and add to the misery and suffering that's already there in our lives. Humility is the essence of religiosity. Awareness of our own inhibitions and resistances has a spiritual quality, because it saves me from hypocrisy. It saves me from pretensions. It makes my life simple. I accept what I am, and I live with the awareness of the truth perceived and understood, and the awareness of the limitations, inhibitions, conflicts, contradictions, etc. It's the awareness that is going to operate. It's the dynamism of truth perceived which is going to operate. So in camps, we can learn the art of being aware of the absolute supreme truth, as well as the limitations, the conditionings, the conflicts existing within us. It's the resolution of conflicts that is important. It's the resolution of conflicts and contradictions which are psychological, which are self-inflicted, which may be the result of fear, hypersensitivity, diffidence, etc. So we will be concerned with the conflicts, the contradictions. What is the facts of our psychological life? Seeing them, being with them, with the agony and pain that they are not resolved. No struggle, no split of personality, but there will be the agony, sorrow, not suffering, but the sorrow that the conflicts are not yet resolved. It's the heat of the sorrow, the depth of the sorrow, which might cause the elimination of conflicts and contradictions. so that the supreme energy of intelligence, the energy of truth, permeates the whole being, and a new life begins within us. Nothing more to be communicated this last morning. When I was lying in the grip of a very violent attack of bronchitis in Chile, I had really no confidence that I would be able to communicate with you here and go through the camp with you. I had to be brought up in a wheelchair from Santiago right up to Boston to here. But the grace of life has been upon us. And the communication has been possible, sharing has been possible with all of you, with so many of you who have come from such long distances. I had not even dreamt of seeing our dear Geneva here, and it has been a special joy. In all my visits in California, Geneva stood by me. Not to mention the others, all my friends from California, Virginia in her poor health, she dared to come here and has been with us. I see Munjal coming from Canada, where we had met years back. Anita from Holland, others from Holland, Norway, Denmark. I see Blaine, our old friend, student of music at Banaras University, and so on. And Sukhdev. I don't know what brought Sukhdev here. It has been a joy, though I have not talked with you personally, not to mention all my friends from Boston and East Coast. It's a great joy to have Bill with us. He could come and join and participate in the meetings. So I thank each one of you for your participation, for your cooperation. It takes two for the communication to take place, or a dialogue to take place. Listening is as holistic action as speaking is. So I'm grateful to life and thankful to you all.